The June 10th, same day as the ceasefire, it's not the KLA. The United Nations will create what is referred to as the Kosovo Force. These are peacekeepers. Okay? The Kosovo Force. Do you suppose General Clark is going to be involved in the Kosovo Force? Occupying parts of Kosovo, where the Serbs used to have their military? Sure. And then we're going to get, write his name down here. The top United Kingdom commander is going to be General Michael Jackson. Okay? Sorry. I think he's got a glove on anyway. And then right here, Prince Charles is going to be coming in. His Royal Highness, Prince Charles, is going to be coming in and observing the situation as well. He's from Britain. Do you know? You know his children? You know the name of his children? Harry. You know Harry. Is he the oldest?
No, he's the youngest.
He's the youngest. Who's the oldest son? William. I just read in the newspaper today. They took a poll of the British people, and Prince Charles is losing to his eldest son by 20 points. We're like, what are you talking about? If his mom steps down or dies, and she's in her 90s, the throne would go to him, but the British public has an opinion, and they like the younger guy more. Although there are some people that say you should skip Charles, you should skip William and go to Harry. Anyway, there's a lot of drama going on there. But needless to say, here we go. You ready? What are the terms of this United Nations military occupation of Kosovo with this group, this multinational group called KFOR? First, got this? Interim United Nations Administration of Kosovo. Interim. How long is an interim? Oh my gosh, how long is an interim? Okay? Some of the Kosovo Albanians are like, could we move this a little bit quicker so that we could actually do what we want? You ready? All military forces, except for the UN military forces, are going to either withdraw, Serbs, or disarm, KLA. Will the KLA agree to disarm? I told you already they would. Landon, why will the KLA ultimately agree to disarm? What do they think is the long game that's going to happen in Kosovo? Getting the Serbs out, and then independence, and then who's going to be ultimately part of the new Kosovo military? Probably a lot of those guys, yeah. A lot of those guys are going to be. Refugees allowed to return, okay? That's another key part. I mean, hello, this is kind of like an obvious play. The KFOR was under the joint control, NATO control of these two generals, Clark for the Americans and the British, Michael Jackson. Here you go. Take a look at this. Look at this map here. This is the Kosovo area. If you know flags, you'll be in a good position here. What area of Kosovo would the United States have direct military control over? Yeah, kind of like the southern, eastern part and so forth. Who is going to have control critically over the city of Pristina? The British will have control over the largest populated area of Pristina. Which country is this up here in the north? That's France. Okay, which country is this over here to the west? Very good, Italy. And then you have a mixture of here, the southern part. You've got Turkish troops, German, Dutch, Austrian, and Russian. You're going to have some Russian troops there as well. Okay? Does that make sense? Now, the Russian troops were under a different understanding as far as where they were supposed to actually be located. This map shows they're supposed to be somewhere in here in cooperation with 4 different countries. But something interesting happens. The Russian troops go to Pristina, and they take control of the airport. Oh, this is complicated. It's kind of like, oh, it's like somebody shows up at your birthday party. They look at all the presents and say, I guess those are mine. I'll take the cake too. This is a little bit of a problem. This is supposed to be a coordinated, cooperative thing going on here. It's 250 Russian troops. 250 Russian troops, okay? This is June 12th, 1999. Okay, so this is like 2 days after the ceasefire. The Russians are showing up, and they're heading to the airport. They're like, we'll go to the airport. That's a very important place. I mean, let's go ahead and do that. This is where General Clark Get some criticism from some people, I would say perhaps including his boss. General Clark, as part of the American forces, looks and he says, NATO forces, you're on my team. And pretty much all those countries are NATO forces. I want to say like Austria, I think, is the only one that's not like necessarily a NATO force because they were neutral throughout the Cold War. But obviously Russia's not a NATO force. General Clark says, NATO forces, go in, take the airport with force if necessary. General Clark, for the British, belayed that order. He showed up at the airport to have discussions with the Russian commander with a bottle of whiskey. Yeah, did I say General Jackson? Sorry, I meant Clark. Yeah, the British guy. Jackson. The British guy shows up at the airport instead of to the Russian troops, because that might have been a little bit bigger of an international incident kind of thing. So instead he's like, hey, let's sit down and talk. I got a glass, here's a glass for you, I've got a bottle, let's see if we can't work this out. By the next day, the Russians leave. Whose approach worked a little bit better in that particular incident? Yeah, it's interesting, it's fascinating, because if you know people in the military, some of the best diplomatic guys, people, are some folks with military background, because they have to do diplomatic kind of things all the time. One of this country's greatest diplomats was George C. Marshall, who was also, prior to being the United States Secretary of State, Marshall Plan and everything, he was overall commander of U.S. forces during World War II. I'd say General Jackson probably had the situation sized up a little bit better. The Russians were able to leave and save face. Do you understand that? Without having to be brushed aside by General Clark. Okay? So the Russians leave. So much for that. Impact. Here we are. The impact, the last section of this thing on Kosovo. The United Nations created, they got so many acronyms, like UNIMIC, the United Nations Interim Administration Mission in Kosovo. Woo! That's going to be the United Nations governance of Kosovo in those initial days. What do they say, like 3 years or so? What are their main concerns going to be? Refugees returning, rebuilding structure, restore order, prevent reprisals. Good luck with that. And do what you can to help the economy. And even before all of that fighting and so forth, that part of Europe had among the poorest economy in Europe. Okay? What's that? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to have a strong economy, there's a lot of things you need to do. You need to build up infrastructure and so forth. You need to have a strong educational system. It helps if you've got some really cool resources. You know, that's always pretty good because, if you're an Arab country and you got a lot of oil resources, you can, transition that into other resources, money, and develop other kinds of things, your education system, your financial system. Yes? Yeah. Exactly. Yep. They're going to be in there in the early stages. Okay? There will be some sporadic violence that will occur in the early stages thereafter, even when the ceasefire is in place. For example, in 2004, there will be a riot, 28 dead, 500 houses burned. Let me see. Who do you suppose, what do you think, Rodrigo, who do you suppose is going to be in the most vulnerable position in Kosovo after the fighting is done? Give you two choices. Kosovar Albanian Muslims or Serbians? The Serbians. Why would the Serbians be in a little bit more vulnerable position? Is the Serb military there anymore to have their back? Write it down. You're going to have about 150,000 Serbs leave. Where are they going to go? What do you suppose, Daniel? Where, if you were a Serb and you live in Kosovo and you didn't like how you were treated, where could you go, not too far away, where you could resettle and it's cool to be a Serb? Latvia? Go ahead. Is there someplace a little closer that has a lot of Serb cooking and Serb Orthodox churches? Starts with an S. It's Serbia, yes, Serbia. So a lot of them are going to go to Serbia, okay? Also a lot of Roma. You're like, who are the Roma? Not Rona, Roma. A lot of gypsies are going to be leaving as well. Going to Serbia as well as Macedonia. There's a fair number that are going to be moving there, okay? So, the economy. The economy is interesting. Difficult economy, heavily based on mining. Write this down. This is like a fact of the situation in Kosovo even now, even before, and it's just heavily focused on mining an element called lignite. Lignite. It's like brown coal. You're like, gross. It's like brown coal. It was like, formed under the earth a long time ago, got pressured. And it's actually, if you're still using fossil fuels for coal, it has the lowest carbon content of various different coals that are used for that purpose. But it is a little bit of a challenge in modern world because so many countries are moving away from coal. Although I think they still burn a lot of coal in China. But don't worry, it's not like the coal doesn't just ultimately make its way up into the upper atmosphere and come down into our country. But, whatever. If you need energy resources and so forth, coal is still fairly cheap. And you can pack a whole bunch of it and create a really good energy source. And if you're a country that is kind of like, hey, it's time for us to grow and be great and so forth, India, China, whatever, we'll let all that global warming, green, policies and so forth, that can be for other countries. Because what's to stand in our way from being a great economic power? But I digress. Lignite. That is going to be one of the sources of some, I wouldn't call it massive wealth, but one of the resources in Kosovo. Here's another resource. You ready? Money coming home from Kosovars working in other parts of the world. They come back. They go to other parts. They would like to go to any part of Europe. Who gets permission to go to any other European Union member? Other European Union members. And so Kosovo, write this down, their goal is ultimately, after they go for independence, which we'll see, their goal ultimately is to become a member of the European Union. Okay, so their people would have no problem going and working in whatever European Union country, right? If European Union country people want to come to work here, Ashton, what do they need? If you want to come work in this country legally, what do you need? And permission from the United States government? Do we give permission from the United States government to people who come here that want to work? Yeah. You have to apply for it. Can you just show up in the country and just anyway, I don't need to get into that. Yeah. That's another issue. But if you're, from many parts of the world, you want to show up and get a job and so forth, you got to go through your paperwork. So a lot of money is sent home back to Kosovo from people working abroad. There's a lot of different parts of the world. Like Philippines, the cruise industry, the cruise ship industry has really hurt the places like the Philippines because they have so many different people from the Philippines working on cruise ships around the world, sending money back to the home country. So one of the biggest economic resources of Kosovo is people working out of the country. Okay? High unemployment. In 2013, 45% unemployment. Are you kidding me? 45% unemployment in Kosovo. They look around, they're like, are there job opportunities? No, let's go somewhere else. Go to Italy, go to Germany, go see where you can get. Okay? Write this down. The KLA is disbanded. Okay? They are officially disbanded. We knew this. But, surprise, 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 they are absorbed into the new Kosovo Protection Force, the KPC, not the KFC, the KPC. The KFC is what you eat when you're too busy to cook at night. The KPC, okay? The Kosovo Protection Force. So if you were in the KLA, what opportunities do you have in the new Kosovo? Military and political. Make sure you put this down. They will also head up a new political party in Kosovo called the Democratic Party of Kosovo, PDK. Who is the top leader in PDK? It's going to be this guy right here, Hashim Thaçi. Oh, remember him, Hashim Thaçi? Ellie, who was Hashim Thaçi? Yeah, here he is, I think, as a young man. Where was he? There he is. And so now he is going to be, it's like, have we ever had military leaders, in a revolution, independence movement, become a prominent political leader in our country? Thank you very much, George Washington. So, it's what does Kosovo have? Do they have a George Washington? Yeah, and they also have kind of a Gandhi, too. They've got a Gandhi figure. So which one is going to be, predominant within the whole Kosovo political situation? You're going to have, here we go, you can write this down. Let's see, make sure I get this in the right order. Yeah, we've got Rugova with his LDK party, both of which agree that Kosovo shouldn't have to be forever under UN control. Here are the results. 2000 election. In the election of 2000, the LDK, Rugova's party, got 60% of the vote. Rugova, I don't know how you pronounce it. The PDK got 30% and the other parties got 10%. So the most popular political party, actually, was the party led by Rugova. So he becomes the leader of that, and he ultimately is going to be elected president in 2002. Okay? Somebody's going to try and kill him in 2005. I'm sorry. Yeah. So 60% to LDK, and PDK, the Thaçi party, is going to be 30%. Rugova elected president in 2002. Here he is actually in 2006. He had survived an assassination attempt in 2005. Way to go. But in 2006, he's going to die from illness, and you can see things aren't going too well for him right there. In the subsequent elections of 2007, you're going to have a coalition government led by Thaçi. So those two political parties ultimately will work in accordance to the primary goal and objective, which is independence, independence, independence. Thaçi will be prime minister again from 2008 all the way to 2014, and then president in 2014. So he's going to be, after Rugova is off the scene, he's going to be the predominant political leader. Okay? And they'll do a musical about him. Just like Hamilton. Just kidding. I don't know what that'd be pretty cool. All right. Now, while he is prime minister, write this down. February 17th, 2008. February 17th, 2008. So this is how many years after all this fighting? Within 10 years, 9 years or so? February 7th, 2008, Kosovo declares independence. Kosovo declares independence. They have a flag, blue, with a shape of the territory. And to be honest, I don't know what the 6 stars, probably 6 different regions within Kosovo. They declare independence. The United States recognizes them as an independent country. Write that down. So exchange ambassadors and so forth. Here we go. There's the independence flag. I think we've got here. Yeah, here we go. These are the countries, at least at the time that this particular slide came out, the dark green ones. These are countries that had recognized Kosovo independence. So you've got United States, Canada, most of the European countries recognizing Kosovo independence. Who does not?
China.
Significantly, yeah, China. Russia, Serbia do not. When Kosovo applies for United Nations membership, who gums up the works on that, Livy? Who says, I don't think you're going to be part of our club? Don't be in a hurry, but it would help if you rushed a little bit. Russia, very good. Yeah, Russia. And I don't think China was really keen on that. But all you need is one country of the five, Britain, France, United States, Russia, China, to veto. And so Kosovo is not part of the United Nations. Meanwhile, let's get some justice going on here. Let's turn our attention to the justice situation. Just like we did with the situation in Rwanda, and actually we did this a little bit with respect to Bosnia too. Justice, justice, justice. Will there be justice? Here we go. ICTY. We've actually seen this already. The International Criminal Tribunal for Yugoslavia. That was set up in the context of the whole fighting going on in Bosnia, right? And there were some people who were found to be war criminals after that whole thing was going on. Well, it's like, let's bring that group out again. They can turn their attention to what was going on in Kosovo. That is going to be headed up, here you go, Carla Del Ponte. She is the chief prosecutor for the ICTY from 1999 until 2007. She had experience for the United Nations doing criminal tribunal prosecutions in what other part of the world? In the mid-90s. Very good, Rwanda. So she has a lot of experience going after war criminals. And so who is going to be her primary focal point with respect to crimes that took place in Kosovo? I don't know. Who? Who have we talked about that would be like? Very good. Milosevic. Yeah, Milosevic. Write it down. May 27th, 1999. And actually, this is while some of the fighting is still going on. He is indicted for war crimes. You know what indicted means? Indicted is when like the prosecutor puts out charges saying, we charge you. So are you guilty if you're indicted? Not yet, says the prosecutor. We have to have a trial first. Well, here's the deal. This is it's just like, what the heck? What was Milosevic's job when he was indicted for war crimes? Yeah, he was in charge of Serbia. That's like the first time ever that somebody in charge of a country is indicted on war crimes charges? Yeah. No. 1999. Yeah, 70 years off. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah. So, yeah, and this is going to be based on the situations in Kosovo. And also, write this down, 4 top Serb officials. So we got 5 top Serbs altogether, including Milosevic. So are you just going to like show up and grab him in Belgrade, capital city of Serbia? Doesn't quite work out that way. Okay? Now before we get to the what happened to Milosevic, let me just point this out. The ICTY right here, with respect to Kosovo, the Kosovo part of it, 91 cases altogether, which is actually more than Rwanda. Who did the bulk of the prosecution and justice in Rwanda? Rwanda's. What was the system they set up? It's going to be on the test next time. Do I gotcha? Gachacha. Remember the gachacha? Yeah, anyway, so here we got 91 cases. Most of those are going to be having to deal with Serbs who are prosecuted. Not so much the KLA, and the ones that they went after as far as the KLA ended up in acquittals. Do you know what an acquittal is? Do you know what an acquittal is? Who would like an acquittal in the trial up in Minneapolis that's going on right now over the George Floyd situation from last year? Who would like an acquittal? The police officer is charged with his conduct. Yeah, he would like an acquittal. Acquittal means a not guilty verdict. So KLA people, some of them were prosecuted, but none of them were found guilty. What about Milosevic? Let's just get to Milosevic. Are they going to be able to get Milosevic? No. Well, he's the president of the country until Kostunica wins, write this down, September 2000, Serbian elections. Milosevic is running again. Keep voting for me. Ignore that, ignore that indictment for war crimes. Kostunica. Yeah. Right here. Can you pronounce that for these guys? Because you're butchering it even more than I would. I do. I've heard this pronounced. Kostunica. That's not too far off. There we go. All right. So he's the new Serb president. And we got a new prime minister. Garrett, could you speak loudly and clearly? And meanwhile, Ashton, could you be quiet? Go for it. Okay? So we got a new prime minister, a new president. Okay? So, Ashton, let's just say for this scenario, you're the new president of Serbia. Okay? All right, here we go. You've just been sworn in October of 2000. Serbia wants to have better relations with other countries, and they've got this issue of the former president, he's got a war crimes indictment out for him and so forth. What do you think? Should Serbia hand over Milosevic to to Carla Del Ponte so she can get her prosecutors after Milosevic? All right, now are you going to do that, or are you going to delegate that fun little task of handing over Milosevic? You're going to do it? Aren't you bold? Wow, I like that. He's bold. He's going to do it. Because in the real situation, the prime minister was delegated with the responsibility. Yeah, so the prime minister arranged for the arrest. Write it down. January 2001. Milosevic is arrested in Belgrade. Oh, and not coincidentally, the United States would send over $50 million in aid to Serbia. Does that sound like a payoff? Just a little. $50 million. And he's going to be sent, Milosevic is going to be sent to The Hague. They're also going to be going after these other guys and so forth. The Hague is in the Netherlands, and that is a city where these trials are going to be taking place. By the way, Ashton, since you were so bold at playing the role of the president to hand it over, I mean, it's like, if you hadn't done that, you might have avoided what actually happened to the prime minister. I mean, I suppose they could have gone after either one of them. The prime minister was assassinated in 2003 by Serb radical nationalists who didn't like the fact that he handed over Milosevic. You know, I suppose the president could go, deniability, I don't know, $50 million or 50 pieces of gold or silver or whatever. Milosevic, even though he didn't win that election in 2000, he still had residual support among the Serb population. He did. He's sent to The Hague there. Here he is on trial. He's standing trial. The trial begins February 2nd, 2002. So it took a while before the trial began. The trial ended 4 years later on March 11th, 2006. Now, I've been in the law, I've done trials and so forth and things like that. That's crazy to have a trial go on for 4 years. How the heck did that happen? One, Milosevic has legal training. He used everything that he had available to him to draw the trial out as long as possible. And when the trial concluded, was he found guilty or not guilty? Trick question. He died of a heart attack. There we go, plot twist, yeah. In fact, toward the end of his life, he was seeking medical attention. And who do you suppose, what country did he want to have medical attention in? Exactly. He did not want to go to the U.S. because they would have handed him right back after they treated him. He wanted to go to Russia, and he was denied the opportunity of going to Russia for medical treatment. And he died in custody. He was therefore never found guilty. So what are you if you've never been found guilty? You're not guilty. He had a grand funeral in Belgrade. Many of the Serb people still very, very fond of him. A hero still to some. This was a cartoon that came out, I believe, in the United States or Britain. Takes a contrary point of view, saying Milosevic burns in hell, but he's got a job of actually helping to administer the torments that are taking place to the other people and so forth. Yeah. Meanwhile, Serbia and Kosovo, the relations are getting a little bit better, not completely full on. There's still quite a bit of residual. Kosovo has been allowed to participate in the Olympics with a separate team, so that's cool. And they got their first gold medal, Olympic gold medal there. Okay, I've got some other little video clips and so forth for you, but frankly, we actually, oh my gosh. That's it. You still have some pages left? That's it. We're done. Boom! Drop the mic. Drop the clicker. Next time, review and paper 1 training. And then Wednesday is blah, 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 the test.